Okay, so as I told you about the importance, so it is basically providing you a food. The biodiversity is not only providing you the food but also the flavor. A significant proportion of the drugs, like many of the drugs we are going to get from the plants, and obviously we are going to get the drugs from the variety of the plants. That's why we are able to cure many of the diseases by the help of the chemicals which we are taking out from the plants. So it is as I have told you before that Allah Ta'ala have said that I have given the cure in this world of every disease except the death. But you need to find out. So yes, beta, this cure is hidden in the biodiversity of the world. There is a wide range of the industrial material like the cotton for the cloths, building material like cement, bricks, etc., fiber dyes, resins, gum, adhesive, rubber, oil are derived from the plant. The biodiversity are the most important in making and maintaining the ecosystem. How it is making, how it is maintaining. It is basically, students, you know it very well that animals are depending upon each other for their feed. Let's suppose the rat is eating the wheat and the cat is eating the rat and the dog is eating the cat. So what is this? These all are important for each other. The plants are important for the rat. If there is no rat, then how the cat is going to survive? If there is no cat, then how the dog is going to survive? So they all are depending upon each other for the maintenance of the, like this diversity is maintaining the ecosystem. Similarly, beta, it is also regulating the chemistry of our atmosphere and the water supply. How it is regulating the atmosphere? You know very well that the oxygen is the most important gas which we need around for the breathing. And this oxygen gas we are getting from the plants. So if there is no plant, then there would be no oxygen and obviously there would be no life. Similarly, the water supply, you know what the water cycle? The water cycle is that to evaporate the water. So evaporation of the water, you know what? By the help of the transpiration. Transpiration is basically water evaporation from the plant, and these transpiration like from the plant is helping to produce a great quantity in the rain. The transpiration of the plant is helping to convert the water into the water vapors, and these water vapors used to condense and make the cloud, and then the water used to recycle all around. So that's why this biodiversity is helping in maintaining the atmosphere as well as the water cycle. The biodiversity is also involved in recycling of the nutrition as well as providing fertile soil. So what is the meaning of the fertile soil? Obviously when the organism is going to die, he or any organism, obviously they are going to bury it in that soil, and obviously the organic material is now back toward the soil. Clear? Okay, let's see the next one, and this you can see that classification, aims and the principle. Let's see that. Students, basically there are the large qualities, there is a large collection of the dissimilar form of the organisms. Like you know that the fishes are not resembling to the snakes, and the snakes are not resembling to the birds, and the birds are not resembling to the reptiles, insects. So we have a large class of the dissimilar collection of the organisms. In this world, our 1.5 million type of the animals and our 0.5 million type of the plants are known to the biologists, and rest of it are still hidden in the world. They are still a secret. So they range in the complexity form and small and simple bacteria to the large complex human being. You know very well the most simplest organism is the bacteria and the most complex organism is the human. So in between them there are the billions of the organisms are there which are surviving on this world. Some are living in the sea, some are living on the land, some are living like land, some walks, flies, and still some are stationary. There are the organisms who used to live in the sea as who used to live in the land. Some of the organisms used to walk, some of them are fly, and some are still or stationary just like the plants. Each have their own life to live, their own way to live. They are getting their food, they are avoiding the unfavorable environmental condition. Let's suppose beta, you know very well when there is a no water, the plant used to die. So every organism have their proper environment for surviving. Similarly, if you are going to take out the fish from the water, the fish will die. So they all have some favorable conditions of the environment. They have a proper way of living, a proper place for the living, as well as for reproducing to increase their generation. There is so much diversity in the living organism, and it becomes very difficult to learn about each characteristics of the living organism. That's why we need to take the help from the classification. Why we need to make the classification? The reason is that beta, we have put the similar organism in one class so that it becomes easier for us to study these organisms. Let's suppose if I'm saying that the bacteria belongs to the group Protist, and the Protists are all those organisms who are the unicellular organism, who do not have the well developed nucleus. So it means that if this is the property of the protist, then all the organisms who are living in the protist would have this property. Let's suppose if I'm saying that the mammal is the class who used to you can say that who used to feed their babies. So it means that all the organisms who come in this class are going to feed their babies. मतलब एक characteristic जो मैंने एक बड़ी क्लास को दे दिया है, this becomes the characteristics of all living organism, isn't it clear? Okay, so if I'm saying that EVs are laying egg, EVs are laying egg, so it means all the species who belongs to the class EV are going to give the eggs. Okay, so like birds. Now beta, what is the next one? To study such large group of the large collection, biologists have classified the organism into the group and the subgroup, and this requires some kind of the system. Biological classification is the method in which the biologists divide the organisms into the group and the subgroup. So this is known as the classification. The classification is that beta, they have divide the organisms, they have put the organism into the some groups and into the some group, and this is known as a biological classification. What are the aims of the classification? Why we need to classify? The aims of the classification is that the branch of the biology which deals with the classification is known as a taxonomy. The taxonomy is the branch of the biology which is dealing with the classification, and the branch which deals with the classification and also traces the evolutionary history of the organism is known as a systematic. So let me tell you clearly what is the taxonomy. The taxonomy is that which is dealing with the classification. Let's suppose there is a hen. Hen is going to put in which group, in which subgroup, in which class, that will be decided by a scientist or the biologist who have learned the taxonomy. But what is a systematic? The systematic is basically to trace out that this hen belongs to which evolutionary history. That who is the hen's forefathers or like that, from where this hen comes. Like let's suppose most of the scientists are believing that the humans arises from the gorilla. How? So they are trying to trace out how. Similarly, let's suppose if I'm saying that the lizards and the reptiles are basically from the dinosaurs. Okay? So how that come? How? So to study this kind of the evolutionary history, these are known as the systematics. So what are the two major basically the advantages are? The one is to determine the similarity. But what is the similarity in the organisms, and what are the difference among the organisms which we are studying? So aim of the classification means that let's suppose if I have the group mammal and there is a group EV. So what is the similarity in these both groups, and what is the dissimilarity in these both groups? We need to study it. Similarly, to find the evolutionary relationship among the organisms, let's suppose what is the relation of the dinosaurs and the lizard? So to study this evolutionary kind of the relationship is come under the aim of the classification. Let me tell you that what is basically the basics of the classification. The basic of the classification is that classification is based on the relationship among the organisms, and such relationship is got through similar in the characteristics, And these similarities suggest that all organisms are related to one another at some point in their evolutionary history. So beta, in this classification, first thing is that we are discussing that what is the relationship? What is the relationship among the organisms? Like how organisms are similar to each other. Let's suppose you are saying that what is the common in the monkey and the gorilla? We are going to study that which thing is making them a common and which things are making them different from each other. So to study these characteristics will come under the heading of the classification. These classification basically suggest that what is similar in these both organisms and what is dissimilar in these both organisms and how they are relating to each other according to the evolutionary point of view. Similarly, beta, there are some organisms which are very closely related to each other, like you can say the sparrow are very closely related to the insect. But there are some organisms which are very much different from each other. Let's suppose the pigeon is very much different from the insect. It means that the former have two common evolutionary histories. So what actually it means? Let's suppose beta, the sparrow is resembling to the pigeon and the sparrow is not resembling to the insect. So what actually it means? It means that these both organisms would have the same evolutionary history. It might that at some point they both have the same parents. But in this kind of obviously they would have some other kind of the evolutionary history. The insect would have some other kind of the evolutionary history and the sparrow and the birds would have some other kind of the evolutionary history. So when biologists classified organisms into the group and the subgroup, they used to put the similar organism in one group on the basis of their internal or the external structure and the stage of the development. Let's suppose beta amphibians. Amphibians is a class which include those species who can live in the water as well as who can live in the land. So obviously in that case the fishes are not going to come in this class. Similarly, the human is also not going to come in this class, but which is there? The frog used to belong to this class. So they are saying that beta, in that case we used to see that organisms which are similar to each other, they are going to put in the same group or the subgroup on the basis of their external internal structure and the way they used to develop. Let's suppose all the animals who come in the amphibians would have the same development procedure, same internal, same external structure, like the way the frog used to first convert into the tadpole and then used to convert into the frog. So it means that those organisms who are in the same group or the subgroup, they have the more similarities as compared to the dissimilarities. The similarities are seen in internal structure and the stages of the development. Most genetics provide another type of the information to taxonomists. Means beta, the genes used to tell us the evolutionary point. Let's suppose beta, how we came to know that fishes come first or the frogs come first? But study their genetics. We will arrange the genes in the sequence. Let's suppose these are the genes of the frogs and these are the genes of the fishes. We will see the similarities. Might this part of their DNA is similar to each other? So this will represent that they both have some kind of the same parents. Somewhere they have the same parents because they have some kind of the same genetic information in each other. Okay? Let's suppose beta, there are insects and there are some snakes. We are going to study them, and if let's suppose somewhere if their genetic material is going to resemble to each other, then this will prove us that might they have millions or trillions years before they might have the same parents. So in this statement what they are saying, the similarities and the difference in the DNA of two stadies organism can be used to get an idea about the similarities and the difference in the structure and the function. So beta, their DNA study is also helping us to find out the similarities in between the organisms and to find out the difference in between the organisms. Hope so you get that. If you have any query, you can ask me. Feel free to ask. Thank you and best of luck. Allah Hafiz.